From 23dB Production Studios in the Garden State, New Jersey, this is the Art of Music Tech podcast. Your guest today, legendary bassist and 6-time Grammy Award winner Christian McBride. And now, here's your host, Fela and Denis.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. And welcome to the Art of Music Tech podcast with me, Fela.
And Denis. Hi, everybody.
All right, this is a special episode. I'm with my boss,
I'm your friend first.
Friend slash, yes, he put me on the map. The now 6-time Grammy Award winner, Christian McBride.
Yo.
Bassist extraordinaire. First of all, with this, I want to get into how we met. It would be our first story. I've kind of mentioned on here about us meeting through LinkedIn, but I'd like to get your version on tape.
Yeah, so what's it been? About 5 years now?
Yeah, 5 years.
I had a string of gigs coming up, and I think my entire career as a band leader, I've always had trouble finding a sound engineer to work with on a steady basis, front of house engineer. And I realized with this string of gigs coming up, I said, I really want to have my own sound person to come on the road with me. And I couldn't think of anybody. Everyone I knew in the New York, New Jersey area were all busy. They were all tied up. And everybody else was in L.A. Actually, most sound engineers I know are in L.A. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, New York, I can't find somebody. And I did something I almost never do. I went to LinkedIn, and I said, well, I know this is supposed to be for business correspondence. So I punched in, I can't remember what I punched in. I punched in like sound engineer New York, and your picture came up. And I went, boom, I hit you up, and I met you in Brooklyn.
Yep.
And as they say, I just said something like, you work with acoustic instruments? And you're like, yeah, sure. I was like, cool, let's rap.
Exactly. It wasn't much talk. It was like, all right, well,
yeah. And then when I met you, I just dug your vibe. I was like, okay, yeah, I can roll with her.
All right. Yes, you do have to have a good vibe. And the same with you as well.
Yeah.
It is hard to work with certain artists, it can, yeah. So you've been the best by far, and it's just been you've taken me around the world. So it's just been amazing. It's been great.
There's more to come.
I know.
Lots more to come.
Exactly. We're coming up in April doing a 3-week stint with the big band.
That's right. I can't wait.
Wow.
First time ever in Europe with the big band.
Yes, exactly.
This is gonna be a trip.
Yeah, I can't wait. A lot of moving parts with 17 or so people rolling around Europe.
I'm not sure I've ever been on the road with a band that big for that long.
Yeah.
I hope no fights break out. I'm sorry.
Now, there are all some cool cats in that whole band. I mean, it's
Andre and Cheryl go. Actually, I don't know if Cheryl's going. It would help, since we need somebody like a taskmaster.
Exactly. That is a lot of people to wrangle instead
somebody
of 4 or 5.
Somebody to keep Nabate in line. No, I'm sorry. We love you, Nabate. We just picking on you.
We love you, yes. I know he has an album coming up, too. He's been touting online, so shout out to him.
That's right.
As well. So, that's the story, guys. Yeah, just put your stuff out there. You never know who's looking.
That's right.
Because I sure would have never thought Christian McBride would have hit me up out of nowhere. So that was
a powerful free tool.
Yes,
a
powerful free tool.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Doesn't even cost you anything. You just put your picture up, and people know that you're a real person instead of just saying I mix and your name. So
spell everything right.
Yeah, and spell stuff right. So. Exactly. So I guess the next thing we want to get into as well is your writing process. for your albums.
The last one.
Yeah, especially for this last big band album. How was that different from your last Grammy Award winning big band album?
My writing process is it's not very. I will admit it's not very disciplined. It's not much of a process other than just. Well, there's a couple of things. One is a deadline. If I know I have to have a particular chunk of music written by a certain time, I just have to sit on the piano and do it. And the other one is when I'm sitting at the piano. I write pretty much all of my big band music on the piano. I try to just it's kind of like fishing. I just kind of sit there and I just noodle around until something bites. I get a melody or a set of chord changes, and I just try to go with that. Ironically enough, it's quicker for me to write for my big band than it is for the trio. If you give me 17 horns, I get excited. I'm like, oh, cool, I can hook this up. But like with the trio, I'm sitting there scratching my head like, man, what am I gonna do? Because I hear things in my head, and I'm thinking, well, I don't know if that's possible pianistically. Maybe I need to change up my idea to fit the trio. And no, maybe I should go back to the original. I don't know what I'm doing, So it's frustrating writing for the trio. But give me the big band, I'm good to go. Yeah. Ideas just start bursting out.
All right.
I like what I made a note on Youthful Bliss.
Ah.
Around 412.
Yeah.
Yeah, but 20-second arrangement. It takes you to a total different environment, like you're watching a cartoon or a movie from the 60s with flutes and pianos.
Right.
How did you come up with the arrangement?
That particular section you're talking about, it's in the middle of the bass solo. I don't know what made me think of that. Again, that's one of those crazy things where I just had this idea, and I could just see like these little kids, like little girls dancing like in a tutu or something like that, So that's sort of the youthful bliss, as the song connotates, So yeah, I had the the trombone, So yeah, it is sort of silly and cartoonish, but I thought it would be a nice little section in the middle of all that jazz stuff.
Yeah.
It sounded like a soundtrack to a movie.
Yeah. It was a sudden change. Like, all right.
Well, that has been one of my fantasies to write a movie score. Because I think a lot of my big band writing has been influenced by all of those great 50s and 60s, even 70s, composers for film and television.
Definitely. I hear some guys. Quincy, definitely.
Well, Q was always the king. Oliver Nelson, Elmer Bernstein, John Williams, Lalo Schifrin, who composed Mission Impossible. He's one of my heroes and somebody I've worked with for a long time. So when I first started learning how to write for big band, I was always picking his brain. I was like, Lalo, what do you do with flutes? How does the oboe, where does that go? And how does it all relate? So and Lalo is also a pipe smoker.
All right, nice. Many hours of talking over there. So,
going on the road with Lalo, I would just he'd light up his pipe and his legs. Very, very elegant and sophisticated man. His very thick Argentinian accent. So you have his legs crossed with his pipe. Christian, it's about what you hear and what you feel. Do not worry about the technicalities of it all. I'm like, I want to be Lalo Schifrin when I grow up.
Oh yes. And also, what bass did you use on the recording on the big band?
That's a good question. Yeah, on the big band record we actually made that. We made Bringing It like 4 years ago.
I remember that. Yeah.
And the plan was, the reason why it took so long to come out was because the original plan was to release the Movement Revisited first and then put out Bringing It this year. But, that's a whole nother animal. We couldn't get the rights, the clearance rights for the Movement Revisited. So we thought, we don't want to go like 3. I can't remember what my last record was before. Live at the Village Vanguard.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to go 2 years without releasing another record. So we just put out Bringing It first, and or 3 years in a row. Wait a minute. What year? Yeah, Bringing It came out last year. Yeah. So 3 years between. Wait a minute. When did the Live at the Village Vanguard? I'm sorry, 2 years.
15?
Yeah.
Live at the Village Vanguard came out in 15. Right. Yeah. And finally, the Movement Revisited is going to come out next year, February of 18.
Oh,
and so
fantastic.
we finally got. It took 4 years to get the clearances for that.
19th, February 19th.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
And
There is a great live performance of that, though.
Yeah.
Was it in PR? I forget.
Well, actually, there's a couple of live of the Movement Revisited.
Yeah, I know. I did one with you in Philly, with the choir.
That's
and
right.
Yeah, that was a
we
that
did
was a
one in
great gig.
Philly. We did one in Maryland.
Oh,
that's the one where Harry Belafonte joined us.
Oh.
I don't think were we working together yet when that happened?
No, I wasn't working with you then.
That was like a month or two before we met.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was funny. Harry Belafonte was at the first performance, though, that I did with you at 92nd Street Y. So I was like, "What? Wow."
That's right.
And
which I have on video.
Yes.
I have a DVD of that.
Exactly. Me too. Yeah. That was a great night.
And I remember like the audience. I remember they were unusually kind of cool.
Into it. Yeah, for New York. Yeah, they can be a little close to the vest.
Like, dang. Come on, y'all. Christian McBride Big Band. I said, damn.
Yeah.
All right. Right on.
Yeah, close to the vest, New York City.
That's right.
Yeah. In certain towns like that in LA can be a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Very.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
On their own terms.
Yeah.
You don't impress us. We've seen the best.
Exactly. They live here. Yeah.
Right. That's right. But I'm sorry, you were asking me about the bass that I used on the big band recording. I used my German bass, which has been in the shop for a year now. That's pretty much the bass I've used on almost all of my recordings. It's a no-name German, meaning we can't trace the manufacturer or the maker, but we've estimated that it was built around 1910. That instrument, so it's over 100 years old, and that's my girl. Minnie is her name.
Minnie.
Oh, she always sounds great. All right, and now I guess with our techie experience, we want to know what you think what's your favorite sonic sounding album in jazz, funk, hip hop, just some of your top ones.
Yeah, that's hard because I first got into. I think the first music that I heard that really captured my imagination or captured my heart was a lot of classic R&B. So like Motown records, James Brown records, Philly International records, Gamble and Huff records. Even as a kid, I can remember thinking the Philly International records sound better. Like the recording quality was better. You could hear all the nuances of the orchestra.
Yeah.
Like all the instruments were present, and that band was thick. They had a full orchestra with vibes and percussion and 2 guitars and bass and organ and Rhodes and drums and percussion, and like you could hear everything.
Yeah.
Like nothing was, louder. It wasn't too. That was perfectly balanced and perfectly mixed. So hats off to Joe Tarsia for recording all those great Gamble and Huff records. The Motown records, I know what it means now, but I didn't realize as a kid, the difference between mono and stereo.
Yeah.
even when when Motown started releasing stereo recordings, every once in a blue moon you get a recording where like there would still be a little distortion on the bass drum or something like that.
Yeah.
By the late 60s, like when I guess the recording equipment, like just the whole recording industry in general, had gotten a little more advanced by the late 60s, but then their records started really sounding good. Particularly like when Motown like went psychedelic, you know.
They had moved to LA by that
Well, they
time.
moved to LA in 72.
72, okay.
So like between 68 and 72, like the early Motown records up until 68, it was like 50-50. Like some of them sounded really good, some of them were like, eh.
Yeah.
But I would say by 68 they started sounding good on the regular, and then when they went to LA, well, you know, that was the standard. And James Brown, now it's interesting, like knowing all the research, because you know I'm a James Brown historian.
Oh yeah.
I had actually heard that there were many times, and this makes sense, that James Brown would actually release rough mixes. Because I hear like some of the original recordings, like the actual old 45s, I mean, other than the energy of the music, like the actual sound quality is actually pretty poor on some of those James Brown records. I'm like, dang, like the drums are way in the back, you know, like the horns are way in the back, or like the balance would just be way off, you know. And so I would talk to Fred Wesley or Alan Leeds or whoever was there, and they said, well, you know, James wasn't big on wasting time trying to mix records.
Moving on with his life.
He said they hear a playback, and James would just be like into the energy of what he just recorded. He'd be like, all right, put it out. They said, well, we got to mix this. No, you don't. Put it out
cool.
like that. So thank God, like in the late 80s, when they started remixing and remastering all those old tracks, now we can hear what like it could have sounded like, you know. So now those records sound really good, but there's a few James Brown recordings. And I know he moved around a lot. He made records in the King Studios in Cincinnati. Those sound pretty good. But then he moved around. He made records in Augusta and Nashville and Florida.
Yeah,
and
he would
Criteria
record on
Studios.
the road.
Yeah,
and just,
exactly.
Yeah, after a show.
After a show, that's right. Hey, go find a local studio. You know?
Let's go after the show.
Yes,
Yeah.
after the show, you did a 2 hour and a half set, so maybe 3, and
Exactly,
then still get a whole band to go and do an after hours recording.
Well, again, to bring up this Nashville trip, James Brown recorded Sex Machine in Nashville.
Ah.
And so at like 4 o'clock in the morning,
Damn.
I said, man, that's hardcore.
That's hardcore,
After
man.
a gig, they were driving from a gig, and well, Bootsy tells this story great. So, you know, he and Bobby Bird were up in the front of the bus. It's like one of the few times that James actually rode the bus with the rest of the band. So he and Bobby Bird were up in the front, like, get up. You know, they could tell they were working on something. Get up. Right, and then you go, get on, again. All right, I got it. Hey, bus driver, we're going to stop in Nashville.
That's the closest town.
That's
Nashville.
the closest
Let's
town.
go,
That's
baby.
right. That's right. Find a studio, we gonna cut.
Wow.
And then the band, like, they had to wake up. They were like, we doing what?
Wow, something so jamming
And
can
then
come out.
and then they finish and they get back on the bus and continue the trip. That's hardcore, boy.
That's hardcore. Yeah. No artist is on that level
I'm
anymore.
telling you.
Nobody.
Dang.
So nobody grows like that.
But I remember you saying you wrote sci-fi 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning.
That's the section where, like the middle section of sci-fi, you know, with the flutes and the bass clarinet. Yes, I did write that at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I like writing during that time because, like, there's nothing happening.
Quiet.
You know, phone isn't ringing, no emails coming through, no texts are coming through. Everybody's asleep. It's just you got nothing but space to create, you know. But some of my favorite jazz records, I find, Rudy Van Gelder is like the god of all jazz recordings. So like 90% of all popular jazz recordings between, say, 1954 and 1974, the bulk of those recordings were made at Rudy Van Gelder's. All the Blue Note records, all the Impulse records, most of the CTI records, Prestige records. I mean, like, he was like the official jazz engineer. Now, what I don't understand is how one person could record. He could be like the house engineer for 4 different labels.
Yeah.
And they actually have slight differences. Blue Note has a sound. Impulse has a sound. Obviously, CTI had a sound. Prestige had a sound. But I said all that to say most of my favorite jazz recordings from that period none of them come from Rudy Van Gelder's studio. Most of them come from Columbia Records. All the Miles Davis recordings, all the Thelonious Monk recordings on Columbia, all of the Dave Brubeck recordings, Tony Bennett. Like, Columbia really had their stuff together in the 60s, 50s and 60s. Charles Mingus recordings.
I was going to ask about Blues and Roots, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was Atlantic. They had some good sounding recording too. But, almost all of my favorite jazz recordings from that period were Columbia recordings. I think they had a guy named Stanley Tonkel, I think his name was, one of the main engineers at Columbia. He did Bob Dylan and Miles Davis. I will dap Rudy Van Gelder on all his CTI records because I love all the CTI records, all them Freddie Hubbard and George Benson and Stanley Turrentine recordings. Those sound good. But sonically speaking, I love the clarity of all those Columbia records. Ron Carter's bass on those Miles Davis records is just like, it's right there, and it's clear, In terms of hip hop, what happened with like, admittedly, I kind of fell off the hip hop radar like around like 92, 91, 92, like right when gangster rap started getting big. That's when I was like, okay, I got to get off. So like my last days of following hip hop on the regular would have been like Public Enemy, Arrested Development, Queen Latifah, Monie Love, all that kind of stuff. Now, once I started to slowly kind of get back in it, I started my girlfriend. I started seeing this girl in 1995, and she worked for Def Jam, and so I had no choice but to kind of start getting back into hip hop. So I remember around 97, 98, she was like, "Hey, we just signed this dude named DMX. He's gonna be big." I was like, "All right, let me check it out." So I like DMX, because I like them throaty, raspy, dudes that sound like James Brown, right?
Yeah,
so,
bringing that energy.
Yeah, but I was noticing like the sound. I guess rap. Even in the 80s, it was most of it was programmed.
And samples.
Sampling was getting big at that time. But now by the late 90s, it was a whole completely different ball game. I noticed like almost every single time I would listen to a hip hop or R&B for that matter, hip hop or R&B track on my headphones, like I no longer could get it was just a pure frequency on the bass drum. So and I was just like, wow, is this supposed to be this distorted? I was like, dang. So I was like turning like the bass boost off, I was like having like real treble heavy on like my first iPod.
Yeah.
You know, I was putting treble boost on that joint. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure if I still haven't been enough on the hip hop scene to know what I like in terms of sonically what's good.
Yeah.
I just been trying to pay more attention to like the art form, like what cats are actually rapping.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been in the Kendrick, like everybody.
Yeah.
I love Common. I know that's going back a ways, but
I don't know. He's very
Still
much
around.
up front.
Yeah. Common was, the first time I met him was right before like Water for Chocolate dropped, and he came to Birdland. He came to see my band, and I couldn't believe it. I said, "Man, that's Common," and he said, "Brother, you probably don't remember this, but we met a long time ago." I said, "Really?" He said, "Man, I used to come see you in Chicago all the time when you played a jazz showcase." I said, "What?" He said, "Man, I've been a big fan of yours for years, man." And so that was a huge thrill. So, yeah, I love Common. I wish some more. I want some more female rappers to come on the scene, balance this stuff out. And I'm not talking about like Lil' Kim and Cardi B. I'm talking about some like back, like I was saying, Queen Latifah, MC Light, Moni Love. I want to see some more of that, some more positive rap.
Exactly. I hear you on that. All right. Well, that's a good place to end it. Thank you so much, Brother Christian McBride.
My pleasure.
For coming on the Art of Music Tech podcast. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. I hope you learned stuff like I always do when I'm with this brother.
Always.
Always.
Me too.
So that concludes this episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Christian.
My honor.
All right. Again, listen, share, tell more people about this. Let's do more. And talk to you later. Let's go.
Let's go.
For more information of booking 23dB Productions, visit their website at 23dbproductions.com. Like and follow 23dB Productions at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for the latest work.